The crashed silence. The desert was quiet. Too quiet. No wind. No birds. No sound. Just stillness. And then, a loud boom. A flash of light ripped through the night sky. Something was falling. On fire, screaming through the clouds like a wounded animal. It hit the ground hard. A deep shockwave echoed across the empty sands, shaking the trees and sending dust flying for miles. Pieces of metal, burnt, twisted, alien, scattered everywhere. Whatever had crashed wasn't from Earth. The next morning, people came. Not regular people. Military. Big trucks. Drones flying above. Soldiers in black suits. Faces hidden under helmets. Guns ready. Orders clear. Secure the site. Don't touch anything. But they weren't ready for what they found in the wreckage. Near the shattered core of the ship, something moved. A small shape, hiding under metal beams. Crawling. Slowly. It was a girl. An alien girl. She looked no older than 8 or 9. Small, thin, covered in gray dust. Her skin was pale blue, glowing slightly in the sunlight. Her eyes were too big for her face. Her legs, twisted, bloody, broken in more than one place. She couldn't walk. One soldier shouted, "We've got movement." They pointed guns. She didn't resist, she just looked at them, eyes wide, scared, like a child who had lost everything. "She's injured," someone whispered. Another said, "She's a threat." The commander stepped forward, looked at her once, then turned away. "Leave it. HQ says no survivors." She was left there, on the sand under the sun, crying softly, bleeding, trembling. Everyone left. Everyone. Except him. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even part of the mission. Just a local mechanic named Ray who had heard the crash and driven out in his old pickup, thinking maybe he'd find some fallen satellite parts to sell. But what he found was something else. He stepped out of his truck and looked at the wreckage. The sand was still hot from the impact. And then he saw her, barely moving, half covered in ash and broken glass. He didn't think. He just ran. She flinched when he got close, tried to crawl away. Her hands shook. Her breath was fast and shallow. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm not here to hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but his voice was calm, gentle, safe. Carefully, Ray knelt down and lifted her. She screamed. Her legs were in horrible shape, but he held her gently, wrapping her in his old army jacket. Ray looked at the destroyed ship, then at the direction the soldiers had gone. "They'll be back," he whispered. He ran to his truck. Back, at his small workshop hidden miles away in the desert, Ray cleaned her wounds. She didn't speak. She just stared at him with those glowing eyes, afraid, confused, silent. He gave her water. She drank slowly. Her hands trembled. He tried to talk. "Where are you from? Are you alone? What's your name?" Nothing. Just silence. He sighed. "Guess you don't understand English." For hours she sat on his workbench, legs wrapped in cloth, watching him fix an old radio. Watching and thinking. Then finally she whispered something, just one word in her alien tongue, broken, faint, sad. Ray looked up. "You said something. Say it again." She didn't, but she looked at him now, not with fear, but something else. Curiosity, maybe trust. That night, Ray couldn't sleep. He sat outside, staring at the stars. His mind raced. Who was she? Why did they leave her? Why didn't anyone help her? He looked inside the workshop. She had fallen asleep in the corner, curled up in a blanket, legs still broken, but alive. Ray clenched his jaw. "I don't know what you are," he whispered, "but no one deserves to be left like that." A soft wind passed through the desert, and somewhere in the wreckage, something blinked, watching, waiting. She speaks in whispers. The morning sun crept through the dusty window of Ray's workshop. The little alien girl was still asleep, curled like a broken bird on the old mattress he'd thrown in the corner. Her breathing was shallow, and her face twitched like she was having a nightmare. Ray didn't wake her. He was at his workbench, quietly building something. Scraps of plastic, wires, and a voice recorder spread in front of him. He didn't know alien languages, but maybe she could still show him things. Maybe sound, pictures, something to understand her better. Suddenly, a noise. He turned. She was awake, staring at him. Her hands were clutching the blanket and her body was trembling. Her legs still hadn't moved. Ray smiled softly. "Good morning." No answer. Just wide, quiet eyes. Like she was still deciding whether he was real or dangerous. He crouched beside her. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said gently. "You're safe here. No soldiers, no guns. Just me and my tools." She didn't move. Ray pointed to himself. "Ray," then slowly tapped her chest. "You?" She blinked, looked down. Said nothing. Ray nodded. "Okay, too soon, that's all right." He stood up, walked to the kitchen area, poured a cup of warm water and brought it to her. "Drink." She sniffed it, then slowly sipped, then paused and whispered, "Reen." Ray froze. He turned slowly. "What did you say?" She looked at him, voice thin as smoke. "Reen." Her voice was shaky, raw. But there it was, a name. "Reen," Ray repeated. "That's your name?" She nodded once. A second of silence passed between them, then something changed. Her eyes watered, and she whispered something again, longer, softer, her alien language curling through the air like music from another world. Ray couldn't understand, but her voice cracked in the middle. A sob escaped. Her small fingers tightened around the blanket. She was crying. Ray sat beside her again, silent. He didn't interrupt. He just let her speak, even if he didn't know the words. After a moment, he reached behind him, grabbed a small notepad and flipped it open. Then he drew something, a stick figure of himself. Next to it, a stick figure of her. Then he drew a small house, a shield around it. He showed her. Her eyes widened a little. She touched the shield drawing. "Safe?" Ray said, pointing at it. She nodded, whispered again. "Safe." That evening, something unexpected happened. Reen pointed to Ray's toolbox. Then at her legs. Ray raised an eyebrow. "You want tools?" She nodded weakly. Then she used her hands to mimic something. Metal. Joints, maybe movement. Ray watched, trying to understand. "You want a brace? A leg support?" She nodded again. This time, faster. Her eyes lit up. Ray got up and opened a crate. Inside were old prosthetics, leg braces, spare knee joints from old robotics projects. He brought them over, laid them out in front of her. Her face changed. Hope, a tiny spark of hope. Together, without needing words, they started working. She pointed. He fitted. She gestured. He tightened. Hours passed. And then, they had something, a crude, ugly metal brace, strapped to, her thigh wrapped with soft cloth and held tight with wire and screws. It wouldn't heal her, but maybe she could move. Ray stepped back. "All right. Try it." She gritted her teeth, held onto the table, and pushed. Her leg shook. She screamed, but not in fear. In effort. The brace locked. Her foot touched the ground. She didn't fall. She stood shaking, sweating, barely up but standing. Ray blinked in disbelief. "You did it." Reen smiled. The first time. A real smile. Tired. Small. Beautiful. That night they sat outside. Stars above. Silence between them. Reen stared at the sky, then pointed to a glowing star cluster. She said a word. Soft. Foreign. Ray looked up. That's your home? She nodded slowly. He watched her. Do they know you're alive? She didn't answer, just looked away, face dark. Ray didn't push, but something in her eyes, a shadow, said enough. Far away in the dark canyons. Beyond the desert, a blinking light pulsed inside a hidden drone. It had found them. It had seen her and it had sent a signal. They were coming. The bones that won't heal Reen tried to walk again the next morning. Ray watched from the doorway, holding his breath as she gripped the wooden table with both hands, her small frame shaking. The brace groaned under her weight. Her right leg stayed stiff, but her left moved an inch forward. Then she collapsed. Ray rushed to catch her before she hit the floor. I got you, kid. Easy, easy. Reen didn't cry this time. She didn't scream either. She just clenched her jaw, her blue skin pale and sweaty, and pushed Ray's hand away. I stand, she whispered. Ray stared at her. She didn't want pity. She wanted strength. Later, that day, Ray drove her to a man he hadn't spoken to in years, Doc Harlan, a retired military surgeon. Lived alone now, hated people. But owed Ray a favor from the war. Harlan opened the door, saw Reen, and froze. The hell is that? Ray didn't flinch. She's a child, just not ours. Alien child. Harlan laughed bitterly. You dragged me into alien business? She can't walk. Her bones are shattered. I need you to look. Doc looked again. This time, longer. He saw the girl's sunken cheeks, her broken legs, the metal brace, the way she held onto Ray's arm like it was life itself. He sighed. Bring her in, fast. Harlan's clinic was dusty, but his hands were still steady. He scanned Reen's body, his screen filled with strange glowing outlines of bones, cracked in 3 places, twisted beyond repair. Her legs hadn't just been broken, they'd been shattered on purpose. Harlan frowned. This wasn't an accident. Someone did this to... Ray's face hardened. What do you mean? I've seen torture victims. These fractures weren't from a crash. They're too clean, too deliberate. He turned to Ray. Someone wanted to make sure she never walked again. Ray looked at Reen, who sat quietly on the table, staring at the floor. Her hands were tight around her own shirt, as if trying not to exist. Can you fix her? Ray asked. Harlan shook his head. With human tech? No. She needs something beyond bone surgery. Her anatomy's different. Too different. Ray turned to Reen. Do you understand? She nodded once. No tears. Just silence. But inside her, something cracked deeper than bone. That night, Reen didn't eat. She didn't speak. Ray sat next to her and opened the small translator device he'd been working on. It was still rough, but it could match patterns and maybe help with words. He pointed to himself. Human, then pointed to her. You? She hesitated, then whispered, Yalari. Ray fed the word into the translator. It blinked twice, then said softly, Yalari, exiled one. Ray frowned. Exiled? Reen looked away, then tapped her own legs, then lifted a shaking hand, and mimed being pushed. Ray froze. They threw you out? She nodded, her hands moved again. More miming, a group, voices, a trial. The translator tried its best. Judged, forbidden, broken, removed. Ray's jaw tightened. They punished you. For what? She looked up, eyes glowing dimly in the dark, and whispered one word. Mercy. The translator blinked. Mercy. Forbidden act. Ray sat back in shock. You showed mercy, and they broke you for it? She nodded once. Slow. Heavy. Outside, something beeped. Ray stepped out, his boots crunching against the sand. He walked to the corner of the shed where his motion sensor was placed. It was blinking red. He scanned the desert. Nothing. But his gut twisted. The air felt wrong, like the silence was listening. Inside, Reen lay awake. She stared at the ceiling, remembering the trial, the screams, the way they dragged her out of the chamber, the way her legs had bent the wrong way when they dropped her into the escape pod. She had begged to let the human child live, and for that, they had called her weak. A traitor. She had disobeyed the sovereign protocol, the law of dominion, above all. Her kind believed that humans were an infection, lower than animals. To show them compassion was the highest crime, so they made her an example. And now she was here, broken, but not alone. Ray returned inside, hand on his old pistol. "Everything okay?" he asked gently. Reen didn't reply. She closed her eyes and whispered again. "They follow." Ray froze. "What?" "They follow. Always. Hunters." Then she pointed at herself, then at him, and finally, the ground beneath them. "They come. The one who waits." The desert was sleeping, but not everything in it was dead. Just beyond the reach of Ray's sensors, half buried beneath rock and thorn, something stood still. It didn't breathe. It didn't blink. It waited. Inside the workshop, Reen had stopped sleeping. Each night she sat against the wall, her legs braced, her eyes wide open, watching shadows, listening for a sound only she could recognize. Ray noticed. He didn't ask why, but he saw the way her hands stayed clenched, the way her ears twitched at every creak of the roof, and the way she no longer trusted the dark. So he started leaving the lights on, even when the generator sputtered, even when the fuel ran low, and every night before he closed his eyes, he told her the same thing. "You're safe. They won't touch you while I'm here." But one night, he woke to the sound of static. Loud, sharp. Coming from the old radio in the corner, he bolted upright. "Reen?" he whispered. She was already awake, staring at the radio like it was about to explode. The device crackled again, then cleared, and then a voice. Cold, not human. Yalari. Located. Exile identified. Protocol reclaim initiated. Reen began to shake. Ray ran to the radio. "Who is this?" No response. Just silence. And then, human protector identified. Stand down or be neutralized. Ray yanked the radio's power cable. Silence returned. Reen was curled into herself, whispering in her language. Over and over, Ray knelt beside her. "What is protocol reclaim?" She looked up, eyes full of fear, voice barely a breath. "They don't kill exiles. They erase them." Ray didn't sleep after that. He started building traps, reinforcing doors, wiring the perimeter with pressure sensors, old security drones, makeshift alarms. He welded scrap metal over windows. The farmhouse became a bunker, but even as he worked, a question chewed at him like rust. Why go through all this and for her? She wasn't his. She wasn't human. She wasn't even supposed to survive. But every time he looked at her, shivering, broken, silent, he remembered the girl she almost was. The one who tried to stand, who smiled when her leg brace locked for the first time. The one who whispered safe like it was magic. She wasn't a monster, she was a child, and that was enough. The next day, the skies changed. A strange cloud began forming above the desert. Long, low, and spinning like a slow storm, but it wasn't natural. Ray stared through his binoculars and cursed. "Not good." Reen limped to the window and nodded. "They're near," she whispered. "They send the drifter." "The what?" She searched for the word. "Seeker. Not ship. Not alive. Not dead. It watches. It learns. Then it burns." That night, the power went out. All of it. Generator, lights, drones, even Ray's tools. Dead. No engine sound. Just silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind that waits. Reen crawled into the crawl space under the floor, her breathing fast. Ray sat at the table with a shotgun in one hand, flashlight in the other. He felt it before he saw it. Something was outside. The motion sensor clicked once. Then again. Then nothing. Ray crept toward the back door. Slowly opened. Nothing but darkness until a flash of silver in the sky. Something floating. Humanoid, but wrong. Limbs too long, no face, no feet, just gliding across the sand like a whisper. Ray held his breath. The thing stopped 20 feet away and turned to face him, but there were no eyes, just a smooth, pale surface, and a vertical slit opening across its chest, revealing something like a mouth not with teeth but with wires and whirling light. It spoke not out loud but into his mind. You shelter the exile. This is your final error. Ray gritted his teeth. She's a child. She is a fracture, a danger to order. You are irrelevant. Ray raised the shotgun. Go to hell. He fired. The creature jerked back, but didn't fall. It hovered, tilting its head, studying. Then it vanished, like mist in the wind. Ray stood frozen, sweating. Behind him, Reen whispered through the floorboards. Drifter marked you. The next morning, the ground outside was burned, a perfect circle. Ash gray. Ray walked into it. His boots crunched over the glassed sand. Dead birds surrounded the edge, all facing inward, all unmoving. The message was clear. They weren't coming to negotiate. They were coming to erase. Signals from the dark. The storm came without wind. It hovered in the sky. Silent, heavy, and alive. Clouds didn't roll. They stared. Lightning didn't flash. It searched. The desert didn't breathe. And neither did Reen. She sat near the bunker's corner, staring up through the cracked skylight, eyes locked on the swirling black spiral above. Ray watched her from across the room. He had seen combat before. Real war. Blood and sand. But this wasn't war. This was a warning. And the girl in front of him wasn't just a victim. She was the reason the warning had come. Ray walked over, placed a cup of water near her. Talk to me, Reen. She didn't blink. He tried again. You said they follow. But why? Why hunt? You across galaxies just to kill you quietly in the desert? She didn't look at him. Her lips parted slightly. I know something, she whispered. Ray leaned closer. What? Her voice cracked. Something I was never meant to see, never meant to feel. She touched her temple. They made us feel nothing. No sadness, no joy, no mercy, just loyalty. She looked at him now, face trembling. But I felt something that day. When I spared that human boy, I felt. And it broke everything. Ray sat beside her. What did you see, Reen? She looked out the window again. Earth has something they fear. Ray frowned. Earth? We're barely surviving, half the time. She shook her head. Not your weapons, not your science. She touched her chest. Your sickness. Ray raised an eyebrow. You mean emotion? She nodded. Your sickness is contagious. It made me different. And now they fear it will spread. Ray sat back in his chair, processing. They think you're infected with humanity. That night, Reen powered up the broken alien device she had secretly kept hidden in her brace. A small shard, like a glowing stone with living veins. She tapped it, her fingers tracing a pattern. The shard lit up, floating in midair, projecting symbols, unreadable, spinning in slow circles. Then in the middle, a voice whispered through static. Ray jolted upright. What is that? Reen didn't answer. Her eyes were locked on the shard. Focused. I found this in the Sovereign's chamber, she whispered. I wasn't supposed to see it. I stole it. What does it do? She tapped the shard again, and suddenly, the symbols rearranged into an image. A planet. Earth. And around it, hundreds of red dots, ships, probes, trackers. They already marked your world, Reen said. Earth is in the final stage. Ray's voice turned cold. Final stage of what? Reen looked at him. Containment. Ray stood up, pacing the room. So what? You're saying they're preparing to wipe us out? Reen nodded. But not with fire, with silence. She held up the shard. They send signals, dark signals. They bury them deep inside your satellites, your data, your machines. When activated, your species forgets who you are. You forget connection, emotion, love. You become like them, hollow, obedient. Ray's skin went cold. They want to turn us into them, Reen whispered. They call it the quieting. Just then, alarms screamed through the workshop. Red lights flashed. One of Ray's outer sensors had caught movement, fast, non-human. Heading toward them, Ray grabbed his rifle. How many? Reen looked at the projection. Not many, just one. Ray narrowed his eyes. One? Reen nodded. The Seeker. Ray's grip tightened. I thought I already shot that thing. No, she said calmly. That one was watching. This one is listening. Outside, the desert shimmered. Heat waves twisted the air, but in the middle of it stood a creature, tall, sleek, its limbs dragging behind it like wires dipped in shadow. No face, no feet, just a long, coiling neck and a pulsing core inside its chest. It tilted its head toward the farmhouse and began to hum. The sound was low at first, then grew. Inside, Reen dropped the shard. It began shaking violently on the floor, glowing hot. Ray grabbed it and tossed it into a lead-lined box. That thing's reacting to it. Reen fell to her knees. It's not reacting, it's calling. To what? She looked up. To the ones in orbit. Ray ran to the basement, yanked open a dusty storage crate, and pulled out an EMP bomb, a AIXIR, last resort tech device from his military days. You're not calling anyone, he muttered. He ran outside. The Seeker turned its head toward him. The humming stopped. For a moment, the desert was dead silent. Ray pressed the trigger. The EMP exploded, in a pulse of blue light. The Seeker screeched, not in pain but like static being torn in half. Its limbs twitched. It staggered and collapsed, its chest still glowing faintly, flickering like a dying star. Ray stared at it, not dead, but disrupted. And now, they would know. Inside, Reen whispered, You didn't stop it. Ray walked back, in. I bought us time. She looked at him with trembling eyes. Time is the first thing they take. Stand or burn. The desert didn't sleep that night. It watched. Above the silent sand, 5 black dots shimmered in the sky. Slow, deliberate, descending. They weren't stars. They were ships. Small, sleek, alive. Not built for war. Built for treasure. Inside the bunker, Ray sealed the final wall with steel plating. Sweat ran down his back. His pulse wouldn't slow. He checked his ammo again. Rewired the generator manually. Reinforced Reen's brace. You sure they're coming? He asked. Reen sat quietly near the signal jammer. Her voice was a ghost. They don't come to fight. They come to end. Clean. Fast. No witnesses. Ray looked at her. Not this time. He activated the defense drones, 3 rusty bots with cracked plating and bad aim. But it was all he had. He positioned them at the perimeter. Then he checked the trip mines, the EMP pulse field. The power lines buried in the dirt. It looked like junk, but it was his junk. Built with pain, wired with purpose. And tonight, it had one job: buy time. Or die trying. The first drop came just before dawn, a screech in the sky. Then silence. Then footsteps. Not heavy. Not loud. Just clean, like glass sliding over glass. Ray raised his scope. One figure. Humanoid. Female shape. Not Reen's kind. Taller, wearing a glowing veil across her face, skin like obsidian, eyes pure white. She walked alone, hands behind, her back. No weapons, Ray didn't fire. She stopped 20 meters from the gate and spoke. "You've made an error." Ray stepped out of the shadows, shotgun aimed. "So have you." She didn't flinch. "You shelter a plague, that child is a virus." "She's not a virus, she's a victim." "No," the woman said. "She's a signal. She proves infection. Mercy in our kind is a disease. And now you have caught it too." Ray narrowed his eyes. "Good." The woman smiled beneath her veil. "Then you'll burn with her." The sky opened. 4 beams of light struck the sand. 4 more figures arrived. Tall, quiet, perfectly in sync, no ships, no engines, just death. Ray ran back inside. Reen, now or never. She stood, shaking, barely holding herself up. Ray strapped her into the mobile brace system he'd built the night before. It wrapped around her legs, hips, and spine, gave her artificial balance, made her walkable, barely. "This'll hurt. I can walk," she whispered. "I didn't say you couldn't. I said it'll hurt." She looked him dead in the eye. "Then let it hurt." They burst out the back door just as the first explosion hit. The front wall shattered. Fire poured through. The entrance. One of Ray's drones went up in smoke, gone before it fired a shot. Reen limped across the sand, every step a battle. Ray covered her, shotgun blazing. One of the invaders moved in a blur, dodging bullets, gliding over the ground. Ray threw an EMP mine boom. The invader screamed, its body twitching violently before collapsing. 1 down, 3 to go. Ray and Reen reached the canyon edge, their escape route. A hidden path through rocks where his old supply truck waited. He hit the remote. Nothing. The truck didn't start. A low hum echoed from the sky. The seeker drone, repaired. It hovered above the truck, pulsing like a warning heart. "They blocked the signal," Ray said. Reen turned to him. "We stand, or we burn." The last 3 figures surrounded them. No words, no warnings. One raised her hand. A pulse of white light shot toward Ray. Reen stepped in front, brace shielding her. Crash. Metal bent, skin burned, but she stayed standing. Ray blinked. "You blocked it." Reen's nose bled, but she smiled. "You built well." Ray reached into his vest and pulled out the shard, the one thing they're scared of. "You said this holds the signal, right?" Reen nodded. "Yes. The truth. Emotion. Memory." Ray stared at it. "Then let's send it." He ran to the satellite dish buried near the canyon and slammed the shard into the port. Lights blinked. The transmission began. From above, the figures screamed. Not with mouths, but with pain across frequencies only they could hear. The shard's signal spread, like fire through wires, and somewhere in orbit, their network cracked. Emotion, memory, connection. Reen's whisper was, now everywhere. The virus of humanity and was loose. One by one, the enemies fell to their knees. Their bodies didn't bleed, but their minds did. The one in the veil tried to crawl forward. "You ruined everything." Ray walked up to her. "No," he said quietly. "She rebuilt something. Second chance." The air after war is never silent. It hums, with dust, with ghosts, with what almost ended, and what somehow survived. Ray stood in the canyon, chest heaving, sweat and ash coating his face. The sky above was clearing. The enemy was gone, not destroyed, but broken. Disrupted, but he didn't look at the sky. He looked at her. Reen stood in front of the shattered transmitter, legs braced in the exoskeleton he'd built, chest rising and falling in short bursts. Her face was pale. Her body swayed, but she was standing. Her kind had called her a virus, a glitch, a flaw, but Earth had called her something else. Alive. Ray rushed to her side. "Reen, breathe. You're okay." She nodded faintly, but her body was weak. The transmission had drained her. "The signal's out," she whispered. "They can't stop it now." Ray looked up at the sky again. The once black dots in orbit had vanished. No weapons came. No fire. Just blue. Peaceful. Scared. Blue. Back in the bunker, Reen lay on a bed while Ray cleaned her burns. He worked quietly, methodically, hands steady, like a soldier tending to something fragile, not a tool, not an alien, but a daughter. Reen opened her eyes. "You stayed." Ray smiled slightly. "What else was I gonna do? Leave you to get deleted by space demons?" She chuckled, barely, but it was real. Then her smile faded. "They'll come back," she whispered. "Not today, not tomorrow, but someday, a new form, a new name." Ray nodded. "Yeah, probably." "Then why save me?" she asked. Ray looked her in the eye. "Because one act of mercy created all of this. Your mistake was the first miracle your people ever made, and I wasn't about to let them erase it." Days passed. News reports spoke of strange satellite interference. Thousands of humans across Earth started experiencing strange emotions, sharper emotions. Forgotten memories resurfaced. Soldiers cried for the first time in years. Prisoners wept. Children felt a warmth they couldn't explain. No one knew why. But Reen did. Her signal, small as it was, had cracked the ceiling. The ceiling that kept humanity isolated from the deeper network of galactic minds. We had always been watched, judged, considered primitive, but now something had changed. We had touched back. Ray took Reen to the canyon ridge at sunrise. She stood, braced by metal but upright. She stared at the orange sky. "This is beautiful." Ray chuckled. "It's just sky, kid." She looked at him. "My world doesn't have this." Ray shrugged. "Guess that's why you ran." "I didn't run," she whispered. "I fell, and then I stood. Because of you." He reached into his jacket, pulled out the small metal tag he always wore. Faded, scratched, his dog tag from a war nobody remembered. He placed it in her hand. "What is this?" she asked. "Proof," he said, "that standing back up means more than never falling." She held it tightly. Reen turned back toward the horizon. She closed her eyes. The wind touched her skin like a prayer, and in her heart, the impossible burned. She wasn't a mistake. She was a beginning. Epilogue. 2 years later. The girl who couldn't walk became a symbol across worlds. The transmission spread slowly, then faster, quietly, then louder. Other exiles, alien, human, even machine, began to whisper Reen's name, not as a threat, but as a turning point. Somewhere in a distant galaxy, a child asked his teacher, "Is it true that once an alien showed mercy to a human?" The teacher sighed. "No, not mercy. Something stronger." "What?" The teacher smiled. "Love." Back on Earth, in a small desert workshop filled with junk, wires, and memories, Ray worked on a new project. On the wall above him, a photo hung crookedly, 2 figures in it, a human man with calloused hands and a small alien girl, smiling, standing, alive.